about me and like my goals and my current mindset and what I'd like to change about it in regards to Dota.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's see. Where should I begin? Okay, so basically, I've been playing for about 4.5 years now, and I haven't really had any issues with gaining MMR up until now. And I think that has to do with mechanics, which, so what I mean is I think that my mechanics have been improving, but now they've kind of reached like their peak in a way, at least, a plateau. And so I'm kind of struggling on improving the other aspects of my gameplay, and it's kind of difficult for me because I'm kind of losing confidence because I'm not really getting MMR, and it kind of is hard for me to get a sense of improvement and that like satisfying feeling of like getting better. And I feel like maybe I'm putting too much pressure on the MMR aspect of it, or maybe I just need to get it up. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that'll definitely happen. I mean, I'm sure you've watched some of our content,
Yeah,
and you know that we're always talking about mentality and stuff like that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I mean, the plateau is real as far as being something that happens to pretty much everybody. Um, I'm currently in one, unfortunately, and it's really just been a
Uh,
matter of and the same thing happens to me. Um, I think I gained like six or 700 MMR in like 2 weeks, and then
oh,
it
nice.
just kind of leveled off.
Like you
And
lost it, or
no, it just leveled off. I was like up and down like 50, 100 per day
oh, oh,
for about a month, and then I went to TI, and then when I came back from TI, I lost like 350 MMR in like 2 days,
oh,
and
yeah.
and you know, so that kind of happens, and obviously I started kind of questioning whether I know anything about the game, which is just like it's just what happens because you feel like there's nothing you can do to win.
Right.
um, but in reality, what I find is that after a little bit of reflection, like looking at some of my replays, um, I'll start picking out these very noticeable things that I'm doing wrong, that whether I forgot them because I took, a week break from playing, or I've simply kind of taken them for granted. Or another thing that'll happen sometimes is that if you win a bunch and you gain a bunch of MMR, then you start kind of feeling like the games are easy and that the people that you're playing against are very good. And you start kind of just expecting to win every game without really having to try that hard. Um,
Yeah, that definitely is what I'm experiencing.
or getting like overconfident, or just assuming that you can outplay every single person that you're playing against. I know that I do that a lot, where I'm just like, oh, I'll just pick this hero because I want to play it, even though it's a bad matchup, and I'll just outplay them. And in reality, when you're in a really bad matchup or you're directly countered by a hero, it like offsets an MMR difference by like several thousand because it simply is like a direct counter to your hero. Um,
Right.
so there's so many different reasons that you can have a hard game, and not all of them are because you're making mistakes, but there are certainly mistakes that are being made that you're just like ignoring because um, you know you're not looking for them, I guess.
Mhm.
So I mean, ultimately what it comes down to is just being able to take a step back. um, and you're right in saying that maybe you're placing too much emphasis on the MMR. I noticed that every time, and I've talked to a lot of people, that every time there's sort of like a big fat number, like 4K, 5K, 3K, 6K, whatever, anytime you get to that, like the number, the even number, the games seem to get harder. And in reality, it's like it's the same difficulty as every game that
Yeah.
you've played for the last like, maybe 20 games. But because there's this milestone ahead of you, you're almost even just like playing in the future. You're trying to get there before you've even won the game. And that can be a huge problem because you're no longer like focused on the actual game at hand.
Yeah, that describes my experiences pretty accurately, I would say.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically just about figuring out how to snap yourself out of that mindset. And that's something that we can definitely work on.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so when you go into, you said you play mid, right? That's your main role.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess we should just get right into it as far as like how to reset your mind when you're in one of these states.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so how long have you, what you're currently 4K, and how long have you been at that MMR? Like
1 year and like 5 or 6 months, or yeah, 5 months. Yeah.
just at the same MMR for that amount of time?
Well, I was actually higher and now I'm lower. I was 4,300, now I'm 3,800.
Okay, I I remember that exact experience of plateauing for a while at a higher MMR and then falling down below that and being like, how can I not climb back up there?
Yeah.
And so when you go into a game, um, are you playing ranked roles or just regular queue?
Ranked roles. And
Okay.
also, the reason why this has been especially frustrating is because in the past, I would gain 1K MMR like pretty fast. Like, I think I went from 2K, 2.5K to 3K in like less than a year, and then 3K to 4K in less than a year.
Hmm.
But I don't know, that might have something to do with why it's frustrating, because, yeah, I'm expecting the same thing to work, I guess, or something.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean that'll happen. You know, the that's one of the problems with gaining MMR super fast sometimes is that something works, whether it be like you're playing a specific hero that you're really good with, or a hero's OP, or you're playing in a certain way that works at a certain bracket, and then all of a sudden you get up into a different bracket, and um, mistakes that you might have been making previously that were not being punished by 3K players are now being punished by 4K players. Um,
Mhm.
and so this is the part, once you've hit that plateau, that's where you have to really kind of do sort of the introspection, um, and you know, it's not something you
Yeah,
would associate with a video game, right? But you actually have to kind of become a student of your game. um,
true.
and so if you're going into a game, you're gonna pick mid. What's what's your process like? Do you just kind of like get home from school, like log in, start playing Dota, or like what's your approach to getting into a game?
All right, so right now I graduated high school just this year, so right now I'm just taking a break. So I actually don't have school, so this is a great time for improvement for me. Which is another reason why it's frustrating, because I feel like I'm not taking advantage of the time, because I don't feel like I'm improving. But anyway, to answer your question, when I get into a game, I have my comfort heroes in mind, and I usually just try to play those. I usually open up like dotapicker.com just to like, I don't really follow it blindly or anything. I just kind of use it to like get a sense of like the advantages and disadvantages of some hero, what some heroes may be. And I just kind of used that Dota picker, and then once I usually try to last pick always, and once I've decided on a hero, I just like whether or not it's the best pick, I just try and make the best out of it. Um, and when I get into the laning stage, I usually like think like I look at the heroes and I think like, okay, do I want to farm? Do I want to push the towers really fast? Are they going to win the late game? Are we going to win the late game? How's the mid game going to look? How's this lane going to look? And I'm usually I win the lane. I feel like that's my strong suit is the lane. But
Okay.
then after that, I run into issues, whether that be like, I don't know, just maybe not making the right calls, maybe taking the wrong fights, maybe um, like getting picked off a couple too times too many. Um, I'm not really sure. To be honest, it's kind of hard for me to. Like I'm kind of having trouble figuring it out
Okay.
myself. So
Yeah, that can be super frustrating, understandably, especially if you're
yeah,
having generally good laning stages.
right.
Um, so I guess the first thing would be to kind of have like more concrete goals in mind. So, and I was asking about like your approach before we even get into a game, honestly, because um, how you approach an activity tends to dictate like the activity. Um,
Okay.
so, for example, like I don't know if you play sports or have like play an instrument or whatever, um, but if you were to go to the gym, for example, you wouldn't just like walk into the gym with your coat on and then just like sit down at a bench press and start like lifting weights. You would, take off your coat and you would warm up and you would probably do some stretching, and then you would like figure out how much weight you want to lift today, and then you would start doing the exercise. So there's actually like 5 steps before you actually even start, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So um, one thing that I've been finding very beneficial for myself is that if I go into Dota instead of just immediately, like logging in, pressing play Dota, and just like starting queuing, um, I tend to look at a couple of my previous games, um, and then I decide on whether like what kind of mood I'm in. So I play a lot of carry and I play a lot of offlane and I play a lot of support. So I play everything but mid, but it kind of depends on the day. Sometimes I feel like being very like farm focused, and so then I'll want to play carry, and so then I'll actually pick like maybe 3 or 4 heroes that I want to work on today, and then I will go into the learn tab and last hit with those heroes while I'm queuing. Um,
So you look at your own replays
yeah, I
by
do.
yourself?
I don't do it as much as I should. That's one of the reasons why I'm currently stagnating. Like today, for example, I lost this game that I thought was unlosable. And at the time, I was like, oh, well, I mean, that was just a weird game. And then this morning, I looked at it again and I realized just how terrible I was playing the laning stage. And I thought I was playing it well because I had like 5 or 6 kills in the laning stage, but then I ended up looking at the actual like stats and I was down in CS by like 30 to the other carry because I was focusing too much on kills. And that right there is something that you would probably not think of in the middle of a game because you're like, oh shit, I'm just like killing the offlaner over and over and over. But in reality, I'm actually losing the game for my team.
That makes sense. Yeah. I actually, to be honest, I think I have a tendency to like listen, like be too trusting. And some past coaches that like I used to look at my replays, and then I got this new coach, and he was like, "No, don't look at your replays because like it's a waste of time unless you have someone else looking." But like to be honest, I don't know. Like I need to listen to more what works for me. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I guess
Um,
it's hard knowing what works for me at the moment, so I need to figure that out as well.
yeah, definitely. So, I mean, it sounds like one big thing that you can practice and start practicing immediately. Like, if I don't know if you're taking notes or anything, but the first thing that I
I
would
am,
write
yeah.
down is just uh, like study yourself or be introspective. Like, that's the number one thing because while Dota is a team game, and while it requires mechanical skill and strategy and drafting and all sorts of other things, ultimately what matters the most is being comfortable in the game. And I don't know if you watched TI8, but I think that was pretty clear in the fact that OG won the
I was
game.
there, remember?
Oh yeah, that's right, dude.
Yeah, that was great. Go on.
but but ultimately OG won TI because they were playing the Dota that they wanted to play. The last game they won against PSG LGD, they were all playing heroes that they were very comfortable on, despite the fact that, Rubik had like a 12% win rate. Magnus was like 15% win rate at the event. And if they had just gone off of like Dota Picker, for example, then they wouldn't have picked those heroes. and they would have picked some meta stuff that maybe they didn't actually enjoy playing or feel comfortable on in a pressure situation. So I would just say that in all aspects of the game, whether it's like, you know, spend some time looking at a couple games, especially if you have free time, like it seems like you do, you know, don't play one less game of Dota per day and spend that time looking at like the laning stage or whatever part of the game you feel is your biggest problem. So maybe like the transition of laning stage to mid lane, just look at like 5-minute sections of like the last 5 games that you played of just that transition. Like, what am I doing after winning this laning stage? And just look at it. And if you notice anything, then, you know, take note of that. If you don't notice anything, then maybe you played that well. But like just kind of practicing that, looking at your own experience is going to be really good for just like making that a habit in the long term.
Yeah.
And then as far as like actively in the game, if you find yourself, Dota is very complex and there's so much stuff going on. So I like to do this kind of in downtime. So if I'm running back to base to heal, if I'm dead, then I try to use that time to basically plan out the next like 2 or 3 minutes of the game and create a plan, create some objectives of like what do I need to accomplish for both myself and my team, but more importantly, what can I do in the next 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes that is going to allow me to have a positive impact on this game. It could be getting an item, it could be pushing a tower, it could be simply playing safe and not dying, and it's going to change from game to game depending on what the game flow is. So if you just ask yourself those kinds of questions, and make it a habit of just being like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What's the big problem? What am I doing right? You know, just like literally ask yourself that question and then answer it in the little downtimes that you have during the game. And I think that you'll probably be able to draw out a lot more information from every game that you play. And that'll make the actual process of playing the game a lot more active, which then makes it a better learning experience because you're like going into the game trying to extract information from it as opposed to just kind of like clicking buttons and then killing people and then dying and then the game's over.
Yeah. So I have kind of like a question that goes along with this.
Yeah.
And so like a way that I've been trying to think lately is if a 5K player or 6K player or 7K player or whatever was in my pub, like would this game be won? Like what, and if so, like what would they be doing that I'm not doing that would make that be the case? So like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I think I probably do something similar, but I don't really frame it as like somebody else. If somebody else was in this game playing it, I just kind of think about like, what more could I be doing? Because, you know, sometimes like you'll win the lane and then you kind of feel like you could coast a little bit from there. But in reality, you could just take the advantage that you have and then press it even farther. And then you can take that advantage and press it even farther. And really, that's what a 6K player or 7K player does that a 5K player doesn't, or a 4K player doesn't, is that they basically just play the game faster. So, you know, it's the difference between taking a fight mid at the tier 1 and then everybody else goes to heal because they're low. And the 7K player is going to stay there and push the tower at like 100 HP because they know that they're not in danger because they just want to fight.
Okay.
Or they're going to go, you know, you have to obviously be a judge of circumstance, but essentially the last thing that you should do is be in your base or farming jungle camps on your side of the map. There's basically always some opportunity to be aggressive and be trying to push the game towards its conclusion. And it's just a matter of trying to figure out what that is. And sometimes that is farming, but even then it's usually actively farming, and it's farming quickly and using your spells to kill creeps and move from camp to camp. It's never really just like sitting somewhere and hitting like neutral creeps with your hands off the keyboard.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely, like, I believe there was a video that was like, I think it was CCNC or something that was saying play Dota and just don't hit any neutral camps.
Yep.
Something like that.
I do remember that one. And I mean, yeah, conceptually that's correct. Like in a perfect game, you'd like to just hit lane creeps, then hit a tower, then hit more lane creeps, then hit another tower.
Right.
And, be in their base by 5 minutes into the game. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but that's like the conceptually perfect game.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, is that fairly clear? Do you have more questions about that kind of mindset approach? Would you like?
Can you like go over it one more time in like simple, like just like the bullet points?
Sure. As far as like
just summarize it one more time, just so that I get it in my head.
Okay. So, and just can you ask the question again? Because I feel like we kind of went tangentially, like in various directions, and I'm not sure what exact question you want me to answer right now.
Oh, like the approach to when you start out a game, it was like you were saying things like I should ask myself, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it?
Okay.
And just like, yeah, like I took some notes. Like you said, to think about what you're gonna do for the next few minutes, and
yeah. Okay. So basically, one of the big things I think that happens when people start to kind of be stuck at an MMR is that they get comfortable and they stop kind of actively playing the game. Like obviously they're being active, they're clicking their buttons, they're clicking their spells, they're trying to get kills, but they're not like actively thinking about the game. And what that means is you want to be asking yourself, what should I be doing 30 seconds from now to help me end this game? What should I be doing a minute from now to help me end this game? Where do I need to get my hero to be able to positively impact the game 5 minutes from now? And that can impact where you move, what objectives you go for, how you itemize. And that's going to be the difference between, building a Lincoln sphere before the enemy tinker has a hex versus getting hexed and dying and then being like, oh, I need a Lincoln sphere. So it's like you kind of have to put yourself in your opponent's shoes to some extent and be like, what would be the most annoying thing or the hardest thing for me to deal with? And then you do that to them.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. So I guess my only question now would be like, as far as just having a positive attitude or mindset in your games, like
the $1 million question, right? I mean,
yeah, I guess so.
This is something I try to practice as much as possible, and yet like 2 days ago I'm in low priority because I'm being a huge asshole to my teammates and abandoning games because I can't handle how terrible, quote unquote, my teammates are playing. But having been through that cycle a lot, and realizing that I'm in that cycle, that's like one of the biggest things is that you have to be able to, again, like listen to yourself and not just be playing the game and being caught up in the MMR or the hero that you want to play or the role that you want to play. You have to kind of just be like, I'm playing Dota 2, the video game, because I like to compete and I want to have fun. And winning is fun, but being good at the game is the most fun. And so you know, it's kind of one of those things. Like, you have a good day, life is great. Maybe you gained 100 MMR and you won all of your games, and nothing could be better. And then the next day you lose 100 MMR, and then you're like, wow, I just wasted my entire day. What am I doing with my life?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
It's like a
So
very
you think I should take it like one game at a time, like not even think about anything else, just be like, how can I win this game and improve from this game?
yeah. I mean, and that's kind of a hard thing to do sometimes, but I think one thing that can definitely help is just kind of like, I mean, you said that you're lucky enough to be kind of taking a break here. You're being able to focus on various things.
Right.
So the first thing is just like, be grateful that that's your situation, right?
Yeah.
You know, I get to play this game. I get to spend time trying to be better at this game. Like, and if you can kind of remind yourself that every time you start getting negative, a lot of times you'll kind of just snap yourself out of it, because you're like, how can I possibly be mad at my teammates? Like, what am I doing? You know? And so,
Yeah, and really for me, it's I don't even get mad at my teammates anymore. It's really just myself at this point.
okay, so it's kind of just like a frustration with not, you know, rapidly improving.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, it seems like you have kind of an attachment to like the end goal of whatever MMR goal it is, or being a pro player or whatever. And you're trying to be there now, as opposed to just like being on the journey, being in the process of becoming a better player.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, it kind of comes back to, you know, looking at your own replays, funnily enough, because if you can, anytime that you're upset that you're not having an impact on the game, I assume that's probably what you feel, is like sometimes you just kind of feel powerless to win a game.
Yeah.
And that's the most frustrating feeling in the world. Nobody wants to be powerless. And so anytime you feel like that, just first of all, do not queue for another game immediately after losing one.
Okay. Easier said than done.
I know, but it's like, literally get up from your computer for 5 minutes. Like, 5 minutes is not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah, I know.
You know, that's not even like a full queue sometimes. So literally just get up from your computer for 5 minutes. Go, you know, make yourself a sandwich, get a drink of water, go outside, like do anything that isn't sitting at your computer, like stewing on the loss that you just had, and thinking about how you need to get that MMR back. Because if you go into the next game like that, you will like 100% play worse than you would otherwise. And that's how you get into those cycles where you're like, okay, lost one, then I lost another one, now I got to get that 50 MMR back, and that's like 2 more hours of my life just to get back to baseline, and then I have to win 2 more games to get to where I should have been, because I should have won those 2 games. So I have like a 4-hour investment to deal with these 2 losses that I had.
Yeah.
Is any of this hitting kind of close to home?
Yeah, very.
So, I mean, this is a very common experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really been the number one way for me to break out of that cycle, is just to leave my computer. And Jenkins swears by this as well. It's like, get up, go for a walk around your house, play with your dog, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then when you get back, again, don't immediately queue for a game. By the time, I say 5 minutes, because it usually takes about 5 minutes for your replay to parse on Steam, and then you're able to watch the replay.
So you think if I have a game where that ends up being my, like, where I end up being really tilted, I should just watch the replay?
Yeah, I mean, you should take a break first.
Yeah.
Because if you were able to immediately watch the replay while you're tilted, you're 100% going to be like, oh, look at how, like, you're going to make the same mistakes. You're going to miss the exact same things that you were doing wrong.
Yeah.
And so then when you get back from your 5-minute break, whether you're stretching or like do some push-ups or whatever, whatever it is, then I like to look at the laning stage. But before the laning stage even starts, I want to define my role in the game and then define what the problems the other team's lineup is going to present to me, because that's like the first step that most people forget, is like defining what the game is going to look like as it plays out.
Right.
And so a lot of, your purpose in a game gets lost if you don't do that. And so as you look at the replay, come up with an idea of what you should be doing in the game, and then watch the replay with that idea in mind and see if you actually kind of carry that out or not. And a lot of the time, what I've been finding, like this game that I played and thought I couldn't have lost it, like I played Sven, I was against a Phantom Lancer, and I was like, oh, this is an easy game. I out carry PL at the end of the day. But I only out carry PL if I'm ahead of him. And I made the mistake of not getting ahead of him early because I was too focused on killing the people in my lane and shutting down the offlaners who were much less important than the PL. And so during the game, I was like, oh yeah, I'm killing these people. This is what I should be doing. I feel so good. And then I watched the replay and I'm like, I'm doing everything wrong. And like my idea of what I thought I was supposed to be doing during the game itself was completely wrong from what I actually should have been doing.
Yeah.
And once you realize that, suddenly the game that was tilting you becomes very kind of black and white. And you're like, oh, I made this, and this mistake. And once you've defined what the mistakes are, you no longer feel that kind of powerlessness to affect the outcome of the game, because you know exactly why you lost and why it was your fault.
Or even if it wasn't your fault, you know what you could have done, right?
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I like to look at every single game as being my fault.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There are some games for sure where your team just loses both lanes that should not have been lost. They have good matchups, they have the advantage, and then they just make mistakes and lose the lanes. But even in those games, even in the ones that seem like you should absolutely not have lost them and you played very well yourself, there's probably still some things that you could have done better.
Right.
I've played a lot of games. I'm sure you've played games like this. Everybody's played games like this where it literally feels like you can make one mistake and you lose the game. After playing like 45 straight minutes of really, really good Dota and doing everything right, you make one mistake and the game's over.
Yeah, that's definitely happened to me.
And so then you have to go back and look at that mistake and be like, why did I make this mistake? Because, you could have not made it. You could have probably carried the game if you hadn't made that one mistake. Or maybe there was even things leading up to that made the game get to a point where one mistake decided it. And maybe you could have avoided getting to that part. So
yeah,
I basically find like that I have never played a perfect game of Dota. And if I just kind of like put that assumption aside that I will never, ever play a perfect game of Dota, then it becomes much easier to look for areas where I could have done something different. And sometimes those areas might even seem like suboptimal plays. Like sometimes you have to rotate to save your team because just stopping them feeding the other team is more important than you getting your next item.
Yeah.
And in a competitive game, like in a TI level game, you would never have to make that rotation because the offlane would, or somebody else would do that. But in a pub, sometimes it's your job to do everybody else's job for them.
Huh. Okay.
That's what makes pubbing really, really hard. Because
Yeah,
most of us watch TI and we watch the pro scene and we're like, oh, you know, like all I have to do is do this. But in pubs, sometimes you have to do everything. You have to do the offlaner's job and the mid laner's job and the carry's job and the support's job.
yeah, I've actually seen a lot of streamers just like mid or carry streamers just buy wards and place them. I even saw you do that actually. Now that I was just remembering, I saw you do that in a Alchemy video.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, it's like if your goal is to gain MMR, then you need to do whatever it takes to win every single game. And you're not going to win every single game, but sometimes that involves sacrificing your farm a little bit. Sometimes that involves buying wards. Sometimes it involves buying smokes and leading your team as if you were position 5, even though you're a carry.
So how do you know then, like, what the optimal play is?
You know, that's tough because
yeah,
in a vacuum, the optimal play would be, you know, the correct play for your hero in this particular situation. But Dota doesn't happen in a vacuum, and Dota happens in a team environment, and so like you're going to come up with situations that might not occur at 3,000 MMR higher or 2,000 MMR lower than you are.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's kind of funny because if I were to play on like 1,000 MMR account, I would probably be so confused about what was happening that it would take me a game or two to actually like start having the impact that I need to have to win those games, because the game would be so different.
Yeah, it would be.
And I would actually, you know, things that I take for granted would not be happening. And things that I'm not used to would be happening. And I would have to like kind of take in that information and then formulate a new game plan based off of that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I like at my girlfriend, she's 1K and I play with her. And like I expect to just stomp, but there are a lot of times where I just like actually lose the game and it's really confusing.
Yeah. I mean that happens all the time. One of my buddies just started playing Dota, and I've been playing with him, and you know, I'll go into a game and just be like, oh, I can just outplay everybody in this game, and then I'll just lose because like none of the lanes are being pushed, because at his MMR nobody realizes that you have to push creeps to the other side of the map, you know?
Right.
And so I'm like running around killing people, and meanwhile all the lanes are just like running at our tier 3s, and I'm like 25-1 and snowballing out of control, but we have no map pressure and no map control, and so then I die once and the game's over. It's like,
yeah, it's pretty much how it goes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, maybe now's a good time to look at some replays.
Some replays, you said? Your mic cut out.
Yeah, maybe now's good time to look at some replays.
Sure.
Since we're kind of on the subject of
let's do that.
Figuring out the mistakes.
So let's see. I don't know.
Do you wanna give me a replay ID and I can share my screen with you, or?
Yeah, like that would be the best way. I'm not really sure which replay to look at. Here, let me send you my Dota buff and let's just see.
Okay.
I can just look at my recent matches. I'm just not really sure like what would be the best one to look at. I mean, yeah, just help me out here.
All right.
Like I don't really know what your process is or even how. Yeah, I don't know. We should probably look at a loss, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at both. I mean, what about the Shadow Fiend game, right? You're 29-17, which seems like a pretty good stat line, but you have lost the game.
Yeah, that seems like a good one to look at.
So we can start with this.
Yeah, okay.
1 second.
Okay. right, I see it.
Cool.
Your turn to ban.
All right, so let's put it on your perspective.
For battle.
And
before I arrived.
while we're walking out to the lanes,
Hey, tell nobody, but this one's already
just looking at the two. Hold on, I'm gonna turn off. Holy shit, this audio is really annoying. Jesus. Okay, so looking at the two teams, what would you say that your role is in this game in particular?
My role is magic damage dealer. And to pick off, like, get a good start in the fight. Like, get a pick off to start a fight, maybe. Or to counter-initiate Meepo. Those are the things I could think of. To stop Meepo from getting what he wants, like killing him. Stopping him, denying his... I think my main thing that I was actually thinking about in the game was just, like, not letting Meepo win the game. By when he gets Aegis, just like killing him twice and stuff like that. Not letting him, or killing it so he can't use it twice when he wants to.
Okay. And then looking at your lineup, you guys have... Which team has more control, would you say, in a fight?
Probably them.
Yeah, definitely. Like 1000% them.
Yeah.
You guys have essentially one reliable stun, two if you include Necrophos's ultimate. But basically, I'm just gonna pause this for a sec. If you look at your team, what strengths do you have, like as a team?
We've got good physical and magical damage. We have global pressure with Spirit Breaker. We have a silence from Grimstroke and a slow. And the Necrophos as frontliner and his ult as a threat. Those are like the things that I can think of. And me as a way of dealing with the Meepo. And providing tower damage, I guess.
Yeah, so okay. The way that I would look at this is that you guys have unbelievably good single target damage. That's okay. Your one main strength is that you can obliterate single heroes. Your team fight is pretty terrible, to be honest. You have like no AoE stuns. You have basically your Requiem as the only AoE damage. I mean, Grimstroke, yes, but I think the reliability of that damage is not very good compared to somebody like an Ember Spirit or a Tiny or a Meepo or Crystal Maiden, who just like sits there and presses R and then does like 12,000 damage, you know? So this game is going to be pretty heavily dictated by how you take your fights, because if you team fight them past maybe like 20 minutes, you're going to be in trouble, I would say, unless you start off those team fights with the pickoff. So you're correct in that sort of assumption that you need to start off a fight with an advantage, and that, I mean, that's just a general concept for Dota, but for your lineup in particular, it's extremely important that you do that, because otherwise you guys are going to get controlled, you're going to get kited, and then you're going to get essentially just like obliterated by their overwhelming magic damage. You're definitely correct that you are the tower hitter, essentially.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit difficult just because your carry is the PA. And actually, your lineup is pretty good against their lineup, I would say. Like, I think that you guys win the late game on paper, just because PA beats Meepo.
Yeah.
Assuming that he itemizes correctly, because, you know, there's like this whole misconception, I feel like, with Meepo, where it's like, oh, I have to kill all of the Meepos. No, you just have to kill one. And PA is the best hero in the game at killing one hero that isn't Chaos Knight, probably.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to play that role of killing a single hero that much.
Okay.
If you think about it, PA only does that. And
Right.
Necrophos basically only does that. And
yeah.
Spirit Breaker also basically only does that. So you have 3 very, very strong single target heroes, which means that there's a lot of other stuff that your team probably doesn't do very well. The first of which is pushing lanes. PA is terrible at it. Spirit Breaker's terrible at it. Grimstroke's okay. And Necrophos is mediocre. Meanwhile, you are literally the best hero in the game at pushing waves.
Yep.
So I would say that your job in this game is to create as much map pressure as possible, because they have a team that is very heavily reliant on being able to split push. Both Meepo and Ember Spirit are like 100% split push based. And as a result, they enable their Nyx and their Tiny to get pickoffs, because usually what happens is a lane gets pushed in, 1 or 2 heroes comes back to defend, that hero gets jumped, dies, then you lose a tower.
Yeah.
So I would actually say that your job in this game is to alleviate map pressure while getting a ton of farm, and then transitioning into this really, really tanky, unkillable core that can sit in the middle of fights, push down towers, make the team go on you, and allow your single target damage dealers to freely do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and just watch a little bit of this. I mean, we can watch the lane stage, but it sounds like you don't really feel that. You feel like you're pretty good as far as like laning stage mechanics and stuff like that. But,
yeah.
I mean, we can just watch a little bit at like 2x speed and see.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you'll notice something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing that I noticed right off the bat is that you could definitely just be hitting this Meepo more. So if we go back to the beginning of the lane stage, like, he's a melee hero, you're a ranged hero. I would pull the creeps back, with creep aggro, like he's doing right now. So, you can pull these creeps over to your range creep, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so yeah, you do that there. But now that you have the high ground advantage, I would just be hitting this guy in the face. Just over and over and over. Like, you're kind of just letting him be near the creeps, and he has no reason to be able to be there because you have the range advantage and you're on high ground. So he's just wandering around in the creeps. You could probably have hit him like 25 times by now.
Okay.
And as a result, he gets a pretty easy, 5 CS without having to use very much regen at all. So that would be, the first thing is, like, if you have a range versus melee advantage, you should be looking to just punch them in the face as much as possible, because there's nothing they can do about it.
True.
Yeah, so more of that, more of what you just did, just run up, hit him, just run up, hit him, run up, hit him, right? You're kind of just sitting back and, like, letting him basically be wherever he wants, when really this is your lane to control.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, well, that might seem like a fairly small thing on the surface, you know, you end up getting level 3 before he does, but you could almost be like level 4. I guess you are basically level 4, but you probably could have been level 4 while he was level 2.
Yeah.
And you know, for a Meepo, that level 3 is a huge deal. And so while Shadow Fiend is traditionally a fairly weak hero in the first 2 levels, Meepo is a really weak hero against a ranged hero in the first couple of levels. So you can abuse that fact in the matchup.
Right.
But anyway, I mean, this is good, like getting some pot shots on the tower. Unfortunately, your offlaners are taking the courier because you really should just be spamming the courier out with your stuff. Just because, again, pretty much every time he walks with the creep wave, you should just be double raising him, so that he can't farm.
Yeah, I should just take it like the courier.
But I mean, that's okay. You've got it coming out now. And probably I would have focused on getting a stick over the raindrops. Again, just because he can't really pressure you. You're not going to be taking poof damage, but you are going to be getting charges from him using poof.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But I mean, that was good. You know, you double raised him when he was on the creeps, got some CS, also harassed him down, you know, forcing him to leave the lane and go jungle, which is exactly what you want to do. Probably as soon as you see him not here, I would just double raise this and start hitting the tower to force him to come back.
Okay. Yeah, true.
And yeah, of course, anytime he stands still, just wail on him just like that. Now he's out of the lane. So, I mean, you're playing this well, but I think you could even be playing it more aggressive. And this is kind of what we were talking about, right? Where it's like you feel like you're playing it well, but there's still more that you could be doing to abuse them even farther.
Okay, yeah, I see that now.
And then probably, okay, so right here, what's the only way that you die in this lane?
Another hero comes in.
Yep. Or Meepo. Well, yeah, basically another hero has to be there and Meepo has to like net you from the high ground, right?
Yeah.
So I would just buy yourself a ward and just put it on high ground so you can make sure that it never happens.
Okay.
I mean, you know, you've got almost enough gold for treads. But yeah, I probably would just, you know, get that ward. And again, you still don't have a magic stick, which I think is really important in this lane as well.
Right.
But this is good. You know, you should be definitely standing on the high ground. So you're not just sitting in the middle of the river. That's good mechanics. This Meepo is just AFK. So yeah, raise out the wave and just take the tower as fast as possible. It's definitely what you want to be doing. So let's go ahead and skip ahead a little bit just because this is a pretty straightforward laning phase. Oh, let's go to first rotation. First rotation is always very, very important.
Yeah, I think I actually made a mistake. I should have gone top. I actually thought that afterwards because it didn't really work out. And the top lane's a little bit easier to get that tower. I just felt like there were so many heroes bottom that I could like help, I guess. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so you take the tower at 7 minutes 37 seconds. That's fucking great. Now I would definitely take a moment to take stock of the state of the game. So your PA is having a terrible lane, right?
Right.
14 last hits. Your Necro is having a good game. He's getting a lot as an offlaner.
Yeah.
So that's great. Now, let's see. I just want to catch the moment that you TP bottom. Okay, so you TP bottom, and why are you TPing bottom here?
Because I got the mid tower, and usually after I get the mid tower, I like to see if there's another tower I can get, and usually it would be top. But I see 3 heroes bottom and think, well, if I add +1 to that, we could probably win a numbers fight. and probably take the tower, or at least do a lot of damage.
Okay, so in concept, that is the correct thought, but I would say that you should actually just be trying to push this tier 2 mid. And that might be a little bit dangerous, but here's the reason that I say you should do that. Right now, your PA needs space more than anything else. The PA has had 0 space. His name is Zero. It's kind of funny. He has no last hits. He's level 4 at 7 minutes. Meanwhile, you are what? You're level 9? Level 8? About to be level 9?
Yeah.
So this guy's already splitting experience 3 ways. He has no last hits. Do you think that adding a 4th person splitting experience coming down here and taking his last hits is going to be useful to the PA?
Well, when you put it like that, no.
And then where's the PA supposed to go? Is he supposed to go mid where there's no tower and the creep wave is all the way over here? Like, can a level 4 PA farm this without dying? Probably not.
No.
Can you farm this without dying?
Probably.
Maybe. You could definitely run up here, double raise the wave, and force it into their tower, and if nobody shows up, then you can hit their tower, but most likely somebody is going to show up if their tier 2 tower is taking damage at 7 minutes into the game. Right?
Yeah.
Because that's not supposed to be happening. So at the very least, you can create some map pressure here, which is most likely going to either get this Meepo out of the jungle, or more likely what's going to happen is that the Meepo and the Crystal Maiden and potentially the Nyx are all going to rotate here, because that's what people do in pubs, is that they over-rotate to save their towers.
Yes.
Or they over-rotate to things that are happening that they don't like. So
yeah.
So if you were to, kill these creeps, and then because you've seen all these heroes bottom, it's actually probably quite safe for you to go up here into this jungle. You could double raise this creep wave. You could walk over here. You could take this camp. You could take this camp. You could take Ancients potentially. Take away farm from the Meepo who wants to be farming these camps. And meanwhile, force people to come here. And if they do rotate a bunch of heroes out of the bottom lane, then your PA suddenly has space, which is what the PA needs to be able to, sort of catch back up. Mm-hmm. Because if the PA is super far behind, then he's not going to be able to do the job that we want him to do, which is to be able to one-shot the Meepo and the Crystal Maiden and the Ember Spirit.
Okay, yeah, I see.
So this rotation conceptually is good because you're like, hey, we're super strong. Let's go push this tier 1 tower. But these heroes are not really strong enough to push a tier 1 tower. Maybe they are, but you see your PA is like, I need farm, man. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of find that you can get so far ahead after a laning stage that sometimes you just get overly aggressive. And yeah, if you look at like their levels, right? Their Tiny's 5, CM's 4, Nyx is 5, and then you have a level 4 Spirit Breaker, a level 4 Grimstroke, a level 5 PA. So like these 3 heroes basically do nothing. And if you're forcing in this tower and they suddenly rotate in, their Meepo, then it's basically all they have to do is kill you, and then they wipe your whole team. And
which is kind of what happens,
right? And you only have 800 HP right now, so like that's not very hard for them to do with their heroes. If you had like a Dragon Lance and you had like 1200 HP, and these guys, maybe your Grimstroke was like a couple levels higher, then I'd feel a lot more comfortable about forcing the issue here. But this is one of those areas where you can still get what you're trying to do with this rotation by just forcing them to rotate to this.
Yeah, that makes sense. That would have been a better play. Do you think going top would have been worse or just as good because it would have been forcing rotations as well? Or
I definitely do think I think it's okay to rotate to like your other strong lane. Sometimes that's safe lane, sometimes that's the off lane. In this case, your Necro is totally owning, and so coming up here and helping him push in this tower might be a pretty good play. But I think that this is optimal. The thing that I described is pushing tier 2 and taking their jungle farm. I'd say the second best option is coming up here, helping this guy kill the Ember Spirit, even though he doesn't really need the help. I mean, the thing is, Necro is winning this lane by himself. And so he doesn't really need your help.
Okay.
And the other team doesn't seem to be coming to help their Ember Spirit either. So the Ember Spirit's already screwed. Like, Necro can just own him in lane once he has an advantage, which he's doing. And so then you don't really need to be up there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
This lane does need help, but I don't think that bringing more heroes to the lane, because what happens usually when you rotate somewhere, the other team brings people there too, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you're bringing even more pressure to your PA by coming to this lane, because they're going to feel obligated to bring even more heroes to the PA's lane. So, I mean, you can come down here and be like, hey, PA, go somewhere else, but where is he going to go? Because you've already taken this tower. You know, now he could maybe go here, but he probably dies to this Meepo. So I think that the rotation itself is just kind of flawed.
Yeah.
And then this is something that you definitely don't want to have happen. It's just
as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I probably shouldn't have come down here. And
so
then this happens, and and then I should have just backed. Really.
Right. Okay. So I mean, that's good. Like, we were talking about having introspection, so that's the fact that you're realizing that is good. And then from that, you can kind of be like, every time that you make a rotation from now on, you should kind of be thinking, is this actually accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish? Or am I kind of just doing it because I feel like I need to be doing something right now?
Oh.
So anyway, let's speed back up.
Okay.
And actually, let's go back here. I'm making a video on TP scrolls and TP scroll usage right now, so I just want to highlight this.
Feel free to use it in your video if you want.
Cool, I might. Okay, so what is your thought process at this point? 9 minutes into the game, you are the most farmed hero. You're going for Shadowblade because you want to go around and get pickoffs.
My thought process right now is, okay, going bottom was the wrong move. I should go back to my own lane and just protect my tower and keep farming.
Okay, so the main problem I have with that now is that where the wave is kind of in a spot where, like, this is actually a pretty safe place now. So I mean, I think that your PA is making a mistake by going back bottom. But I would say, now that you've died and you can decide where to go, I would probably walk up this way. And I would maybe go farm this, and then go meet up with my Necrophos and take this tower. And then by then you'll probably have your Shadowblade, and then you have access to all of their jungle to be able to gank with your Shadowblade. Okay. So you
don't think I should TP, I should just walk?
Yeah, because what's really important about TP scrolls is that when you use it, you're basically committing to being where you are. Like, it's like a hard commit to be there, right? Because it has an 80-second cooldown, which means that to get anywhere else on the map, you have to walk. And so once you have decided, okay, I am going to the mid lane, you're now, not only are you showing the TP, so now the other team knows, okay, Shadow Fiend is in the mid lane and he cannot be in any of the other lanes with any amount of speed. So they have free reign to do whatever they want over here in this lane that's already weak.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that if they want to stop this Necro from pushing this tower, he has absolutely no backup from you, because, I mean, Who's going to rotate from here to help this guy out? Nobody.
Yeah.
So that's why I probably would have, walked up here. You get some more farm, Then you end up here. You finish off this tower, and suddenly you have 2 tier 1s in the bank. You probably have your Shadow Blade finished or close to it. And if this ends up going poorly down here, if they end up going on your team, you still have the ability to show up here immediately and help them out.
Yeah, that definitely seems better.
So let's go back to here. Just clearing these camps. Coming back up. And then I'm curious what you do after this. Okay, right. So what ended up happening, your Necro did get gone on because he was deep and had no backup. And now they are going ham in the bottom lane, and you can't go help either of them. So you're basically left with the option of walking back to these very, very safe camps and taking them again, right? Which is something you would be doing if you were losing the laning stage as Shadow Fiend. This is not really something you would be doing if you're ahead.
Oh.
Generally speaking, because this farm accomplishes nothing other than just getting you a little bit of golden experience. Whereas, this farm gets you to an objective that you're trying to take. And, obviously this farm gets you to a tower, which is what you're trying to pressure. But you saw there, right, that you basically, you TP'd here, and then you walked, and then you walked.
Yeah.
All the way over here. Like, that doesn't seem very efficient. And on a hero that farms as fast as Shadow Fiend, like, every single second that you spend walking is kind of a waste of time.
Okay.
So, how I was talking about, like, the speed of the game at, like, a 6 or 7K player?
Yeah, like, they do things faster.
Yeah, like, you would never see them do that. You would absolutely never see them walk up here and then walk back here. They would 100% walk up here and then maybe like go farm up here, maybe farm their way over like this, but they would never just walk up here and then walk back the exact same way that they came and then go farm 2 camps like way behind their towers.
I see.
And feel free to ask questions. Sorry, I'm just kind of like, spitting things as I see them. But if you have any questions, you want me to clarify stuff, or if you are doubting anything that I'm saying, feel free to ask me anything that is coming to mind, because I want this to be like as helpful as possible.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I'm just also taking it in.
That's fine. Okay, good. You're coming over here. Let's look at player perspective. And so this is something that I also like to do, is anytime I see like some play happen, I really like to check out the different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we go back here, right, and we see you come over here, you see that there is somebody up here. You can see the Nyx down here, but you can't see anybody else, right? Now you see Meepo, I guess. But I'd say that this is a pretty dangerous place to be farming with no vision at this current moment, being that they're trying to pressure your tower. So then when you do walk back up this way, and actually this is really interesting, just because I kind of want to look at your camera movement. So let's slow it down a little bit. Okay, so you move your camera over here, right? And this is your perspective. So this is exactly what you did in the game.
Yeah.
You move your camera over here, and then you just kind of leave it up here watching what's happening. Now, on the minimap, you can see a tiny, right?
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
But you don't even like register that he's there until he's already stunned you.
Yeah, I did not realize that he was showing on the map.
And so then basically your natural reaction is to kind of just like Requiem because it keeps you safe and threatens them and gets them off of you. But that wasn't really a very useful Requiem. Like, I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah. It was more of a panic Requiem.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's definitely good to go check out what's happening over here at the tower. But, you know, now you could double tap your key to go center on yourself again. And then you could go back and check, like, if I were to just do this, select this guy. Oh, what hero is Shadow 2, 1, 4? Okay, so I see this engagement happening. My camera's over here. Then I would go back in my Shadow Fiend. Then I would look back over here, back like this. Basically, like as I'm walking there, I'm gonna just be checking over and over again, kind of, because I don't want to lose track of my hero. That's like a big thing. As you're approaching a fight, it can get really easy to get caught up in what's going on in the fight. And you don't want to lose track of where your hero is. Because sometimes, this happens to me all the time on like Axe or Earthshaker. I'll be running towards a fight, and if I get too hype, then I'll blink, and I'll blink short. Or I'll get, you know, I'll run past a Venom Ward, and it'll hit me, and then I'll just Echo Slam nothing. Yeah. And so it's like really important to always be keeping track of both what's happening where you're trying to go and also where you are, so that you never have, you know, this happen basically where you're running up and you get stunned. And, you know, if the CM was level 6, you probably die there, honestly.
Oh, so, yeah. And if she had actual mana.
Yeah. So.
And I just want to mention that this is a very reoccurring pattern. I get ahead in the laning stage. I'm like the top of the net worth. And then I still lose. That happens. That's like the thing that happens in my pubs.
And that's probably partially the heroes that you play, and also just the way that you are kind of approaching the game. So,
can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, you were aggressive in pressuring this tower, right? And then the next probably 4 or 5 moves that you've made have been very reactionary to other things that are happening in the game. So
that is true.
You TP'd bottom because you thought you needed to help down there. Didn't really work out because the other team saw you TP in and they backed off. Then you TP'd mid, and you kind of just like pushed out, and then you were like, well, my Necrophos just died top and bottom has nothing going on, so what am I supposed to do now? And I guess the only thing for me to do is come back here and farm these 2 camps. And then the tower is being pressured here, so you like walk up to try and defend, and then Tiny ganks you, and then you react by pressing Requiem. So basically, in none of those situations were you the one that was making the other team do stuff, and you were basically doing things to react to what the other team was doing.
I see.
Meanwhile, like you said, you are the second highest net worth hero. Probably should be the highest net worth hero. If you were playing actively. And so, you know, while you don't necessarily have the health pool to just like run at people, you do have the ability to still be actively kind of like, you know, forcing in lanes or setting up stuff for your team. Like, instead of farming this camp over here, you could have just walked up and started like hitting the Ember Spirit in the face, you know? Like, they should be scared of you, and currently they're not.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing.
Yes.
Right. And again, you're kind of just like waiting for something to happen, and then you use your Shadow Blade. And now they're going on you guys again, and so you're coming in to react to that, and it puts you in kind of an awkward position. And now you're just kind of like you realize that this situation is fucked because the other team is kind of like dictating the pace of the game, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this move is fine to come down here and start pressuring this tower because now you're actively doing something to make the other team have to react to you. And
Yeah.
this is what you want to be doing on Shadow Fiend. And I know it's kind of confusing because we just talked about how the rotation bottom was bad at first.
I understand. Yeah, don't worry.
But
I get it.
But yeah, essentially, like now, okay, so they don't react, they lose their tower. So now you should just continue going to this tower, right? Again, you're kind of just like passively, okay, I guess I'll just like walk over this way. Like, what's your purpose right now? Do you know?
I was just thinking to just farm, like to just get ahead, and I guess that is kind of a reactionary thing. I was thinking like, if there's a really important team fight, then I'll go to it. Otherwise, I'll just want to get my own net worth ahead because I feel like we win later.
Right, and I mean, again, conceptually that's correct, but you can get that net worth ahead while still accomplishing stuff on the map, right? You don't just have to be like in your safe space jungle. You can be forcing the other team to be getting less while you're getting more, as opposed to just kind of being like, well, we'll just cut the map off at the river and say that this is our half and that's your half and you guys can just farm and we'll just farm and then we'll see what happens in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I think that that's really important. Unfortunate. Meepo's a stupid hero.
Yep. I'm a Meepo player, actually, so I know I've been on both sides.
Okay, so yeah, you're kind of just like taking all this very safe farm from your team when you have an aggressive build going on.
Yeah.
You know, you see multiple heroes top, like you should be punishing them. Like that's one of the biggest things. It's kind of like a mantra that I've been repeating to myself is that if I see somebody like on my side of the map and they seem to be just getting stuff for free, they need to be punished. Like pretend that you're Batman.
Okay.
Pretend that you're Batman and there's a bunch of like stupid thugs just like doing whatever they want in Gotham City. And
Okay.
you need to punish them for being arrogant enough to think that they can get away with that.
Okay, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Right. Okay, so now you've got 3 cores. You've got all 3 cores in the mid lane. Like this is super, super inefficient. And it's not necessarily 100% on you, but being that we're taking the attitude of everything's my fault, you know, like, okay, you see that this guy's walking over here, so you should just go somewhere else. Let this guy have this farm. This is like the worst right here.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The way I was thinking of it is that like I'm the #1 farm priority, so I should just take the farm.
But you're not. The PA is the #1 farm priority.
Oh well, yeah. No, I meant like in that, you know, when it comes down to me and Necro, I'm higher farm priority. That's what I meant.
But you're not, because you already have your Shadow Blade. You have the item that is allowing you to do stuff, and Necro is still trying to get some stuff. You know, this Necro can do nothing other than press R, whereas you can run around and make stuff happen and get vision and pressure towers and get away and escape and show up to team fights and kill people on your own. This Necro is just kind of like, hey, I'm this slow fat dude who can't do anything.
Okay, that I understand now. Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to be enabling your team to like do stuff. And you do that by being active and like letting them have like the easy shit.
Okay. I never thought of it like that. Like that it's safe farm. Like I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so
that kind of helps.
Yeah, that's something that it's habitual, right? You like if you are a carry or a mid player, it's very habitual to just be like, okay, where is the nearest camp? Where is the nearest creep for me to hit? And then you just go there and you hit it. But, you know, there's like I said, safe and unsafe farm and aggressive farming patterns and stuff like that. And depending on the state of the game and how you feel, whether you feel safe or not, like you should be taking different farm.
Okay.
Next thing is I would probably just go directly for BKB.
Like instead of Manta?
Yeah.
Because they're like they have a lot of spell.
They are 100% only spell damage right now. And they have a lot of stuns. So being that you're the most powerful hero on your team, you need to be able to be like the center of the team fight, getting your Requiem off. And they have a lot of ways to disable you from doing that.
Okay.
Other than you like sneakily getting in and, you know, Shadowblade requieming that's the word, somebody. And yeah, I just think I think early BKB on Shadow Fiend is like super, super good in a lot of games. And BKB timing is just, nobody wants to go for BKB, right? It's a boring item, but it's literally like the best item in the game in most situations. And on most heroes, people get BKB too late. They get BKB after they've lost the fight where they should have had BKB. And
okay, that makes sense, yeah.
That's always an unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
Cool, so you're doing fine. You've got some kills. Keeping up with this Meepo. I guess we can go back and look at this, although it seems like an okay fight.
Yeah, but again, like it is reactionary. I'm just farming creeps until something happens. Like
right, yeah, you're just kind of in your jungle aimlessly. Meanwhile, it's like this Tiny's getting free farm in the top lane. This Nyx is getting free farm in the bottom lane. You've got like 4 heroes in the jungle. And the other team is just getting a ton out of the map, right? Because we all know that lane creeps are like twice as good as jungle creeps.
Yeah.
So even though you farm them fast, you're still getting less than this Tiny is. And you definitely don't want to be getting less than a position 4 Tiny.
Definitely not.
Okay, so that was good. But yeah, so I mean, if you had BKB there, I don't know if you would have had BKB in time, but regardless, goes well. Good job hitting your raises.
Thanks.
I'm not a Shadow Fiend player myself, so anytime people hit raises, I'm like, props to you, man. Because I probably would have missed it.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's see how you die here. So I know that I'm focusing on like all of your deaths, but I think that's really important because, you know, especially if you're a snowballer like Shadow Fiend, every death that you have is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're TPing here to help this guy. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
You're TPing to the shrine.
I guess it was a little impulsive, to be honest.
I mean, bounties are up.
Like, that's just kind of where I've been all game, you know? Like, this area.
Right.
So that's part of it.
Feels like kind of autopilot, like habitual, just coming back to this like safe little triangle because this doesn't seem safe, and it's really not safe because you don't have very good wards here.
Right.
But I mean, if we look at the map, right? Yeah, let's actually do this. If we look at the map, okay, when you say
look at my player perspective, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we look at the map, we see that your PA's here, you've got your Necrophos here. So again, you're kind of putting another core in this area. You have 3 cores on one little tiny like quarter of the map. When you see a huge wave coming in bottom, I say huge wave because there's 3 range creeps, which is, you know, a
Yeah.
decent amount of farm, plus another wave behind it.
Yep.
And you see that Meepo's dead, Ember Spirit's dead. So you could come over here, you could farm this, and then you could probably farm the next wave, and then they would have creeps on their tower, which means that Meepo or Ember Spirit would have to come here, which means that you can go anywhere else on the map and take a 4-on-5 fight.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like this happens a lot. Like I'm top of the net worth, and then I make the wrong play and I die, and then it's all like, there goes my momentum, you know?
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, like this Tiny, he has all of this, right? Because he was just free farming here. Like he was very low net worth, and then he just got like 6 or 7 waves of creeps because nobody was pushing the lanes and everybody was in the jungle.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's an hour and a half.
Okay.
It went by kind of fast.
Yeah, it did.
But I mean, I feel like there's a decent amount that we can take away from just this replay, right? We kind of focus on the area that has been a problem for you historically, which is like this good laning phase, weak transition into the mid game, and from there the game is hard.
Yes.
And I understand why you went Manta. You went Manta because there's 3 roots on their team.
Yeah.
So that's definitely good. However, you also have to keep in mind like the state of the other heroes in your team, and basically you have 0 ability to take fights unless you have a BKB. Like you actually cannot take a fight because the rest of your team is so weak. So if all 5 of you are squishy, then there's no way you can take a fight, which means that you have to rely on basically dodging them for the next like 10 minutes, and that's just not how you want to be playing the game.
Yeah. So I should just be more active and less reactionary and less farmy.
Yeah.
At least less neutrally.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, here's the thing. It's like, you're going to take this advice. I know this is exactly what's going to happen. You're going to take this advice. The next like 5 or 6 games that you play, you're going to be like hella deep in their territory, like feeding relentlessly deep in their jungle. But that's fine. Like, don't even worry about that, because you are going to be learning the limits of where you should be on your heroes, as opposed to just kind of like sitting in your safe zone right here, which is ultimately kind of a good like analogy for how your game has been over the last year, right? You got to 4K like a year and a half ago, and you haven't moved since. You're kind of in that little safe zone of 3K, 4K, and you want to be pushing the envelope. You want to be playing faster. You want to be playing higher. And to do that, you need to take more risks and make better decisions. And the only way to do that is to play in an uncomfortable way. So for the next like 5 to 10 games that you play, I mean, you can even do this in unranked if you want. If you really don't want to lose the MMR to learn, which is totally acceptable, then do that. You know, play 5 or 10 games of unranked and just see if you feel like you can dictate the pace of the game for the entire game. Like, that should be your goal, is be like, I'm in control of this game. What can I do to make the other team uncomfortable? And just do that. And if they rotate 5 people to kill you, guess what? Your team has now 4 people that are farming for free. And if they can't carry the game because, you know, they're bad, then that's just the case, and you just do it the next game, and maybe then you get a teammate that can actually carry the game once you've made all the space for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
Okay.
Any last questions or things you want me to clarify?
So yeah, if you had to like peg my reason for not gaining MMR is, it would be that I'm not pushing the envelope, basically.
Yep. You're comfortable in your mechanics during the laning phase, and you're kind of like relying on that being enough to win you games. But as you climb higher and higher, you're going to have to carry harder and harder, which means that you need to be more and more active and like dictating the pace of the game to the other team more and more.
Okay.
And like if you want to watch like Sumail or No One or Miracle or any of these top streamers, like especially the ones that play very aggressive heroes, like the ones that I mentioned, you'll see that they're like, they push a tower and then they're getting a kill, and then they're pushing a tower and then they're getting a kill, and they're always on the other side of the map and they're always like in the enemy's face, and they give the other team no area to do anything. And that like that's how you win, is by basically making the other team uncomfortable.
I see. Yeah, that was actually something I wanted to talk about. I just remembered. So, yeah, I've gotten advice to like find higher level players and like watch them. But for me, the problem has been that it's hard for me to like find, like to know the best way to do that. So, like, people have told me just watch the top 100 players. So I go on the leaderboard and I look up like mid players. But so the problem that I run into is a lot of the players that I actually am interested in watching have like private Dota buffs, like Topson and stuff.
Just go here. Watch tab.
All
right, VGJ Storm. It's Marzipai. I have no idea who that is, but I'm gonna assume that it's probably like.
Hey, Jenkins is in that game.
Yeah, he is. So he is. So if we just go to this game.
So like I don't have to like follow one particular player. I can just watch whoever is playing or whoever I can.
I mean, this dude's ranked 50. I think this is, I don't know who this is, but he's ranked 50. He's good enough to be, you know, like 7,500 MMR. So clearly he's doing a lot of stuff right.
Okay. And he's playing my favorite hero.
Yeah, so he's playing Invoker. You can watch him play against Zeus, which is kind of a tough matchup in the early stages of the game. And then you can, you know, switch back and forth between their perspective and see like spell usage. This Zeus, see how aggressive the Zeus is being? He's like, I know that I am way more powerful than this Invoker is in the early stage of the game, so he's just like running at him.
Right.
And he's totally in his face, making it really hard for him to last it.
Yeah, I think watching replays, whether it be my own or pro replays, is something I'm definitely not doing enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do it enough either, and that's why I currently am having trouble gaining MMR myself. So that's kind of like a pattern. Like you're talking about some various patterns. It's a pattern that I see is anytime that I go from, you know, having a very kind of like calculated approach to playing the game, like I have goals and I'm watching replays and stuff like that, I gain tons of MMR. And then anytime I'm like, well, I just need to gain a bunch of MMR, so I'm just going to play like 50 games this week, then I almost never gain MMR. I basically go 25 and 25 or worse, and then that's my week, and then I've wasted all my time because I haven't actually learned anything.
Okay, yeah, that feels like me. Yeah, so I guess the thing, like, because I think I've just been enveloped or overtaken by this need to gain MMR, and I've forgotten, like, to enjoy the game and to, like, actually like improving. Like, I'm so...
Yep, that'll happen.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've realized that, like, I mean, I don't know what you respond to, but you can even just put a post-it note, like, on your monitor and just be like, just come up with a goal that isn't gaining MMR for the day and put that on there, and then just look at that periodically throughout the game. Remind yourself that I need to be doing this. And the MMR is just a byproduct of playing better. Because
what do you think that should be? I mean, you said, yeah, obviously that's more up to me, but like, just do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, I would start with think about every rotation.
Every rotation that I make, or that the enemy team makes,
that
both?
you make.
Okay.
Right, because that bottom rotation was bad.
Right.
And then I think, there's a couple other rotations that were just kind of autopiloted. So just think about every rotation, put that on your monitor, and then every time you're playing a game and you're about to TP somewhere, don't TP immediately unless you have to be there to win a team fight. And just be like, should I be doing this? What am I accomplishing by doing this? And then decide based on that.